Consider this. Students returning to class this week are less likely to finish high school than their parents, and they're falling behind students in other countries, scoring lower in science than their peers in 28 nations, and ranking 35th in math, behind countries like Estonia and Azerbaijan. The Obama administration is attempting the most ambitious school reform in a generation, but it's also sparked battles with teachers' unions over accountability and merit pay. The Secretary of Education says that those countries that out-educate America today will out-compete America tomorrow.
I'm Arne, how you doing?
With $100 billion in federal stimulus money and a close personal friendship with the president, Arne Duncan has an unprecedented opportunity to reform education in America.
Education is the civil rights issue of our generation.
Duncan, former CEO of the Chicago school system, learned the importance of education early on. His mother ran an after-school tutoring program.
What I was lucky enough to have ingrained in me was that poverty wasn't destiny, that with opportunities, with support, and with guidance, every single child can be successful.
A former professional basketball player, Duncan is playing with a local basketball team in Louisiana. He's on an 8-state back-to-school bus tour, and he's got business to do, smoothing ruffled feathers amongst the teachers.
What are we not doing, or what should we be doing differently?
Welcome to a classroom. My name is Jay.
Thanks for all the hard work. I appreciate it.
The administration's teacher reform plan is controversial. Duncan is calling for schools to use data on student achievement to evaluate teachers, a measure long opposed by teachers' unions, but aimed to make sure that children get the best in class.
In education, we've been scared to spotlight excellence.
Duncan says that student performance and growth should also be used, but teachers are uneasy about having their work tied to student test scores.
How are we going to assess teachers in different ways? Because testing is not the way, Mr. Secretary.
It's clear that teachers are frustrated.
Why am I paid as if I'm the lowest of the low? When I have your child's mind in my hand more than you do.
Duncan supports paying teachers more based on how well their students perform. At a union rally in Louisiana, Duncan assures teachers that he wants them all to work together.
We have to do so much more to elevate the teaching profession, to say thank you.
And Secretary Duncan joins me now, also President of the American Federation of Teachers, Randi Weingarten, and Michelle Rhee, Chancellor of the D.C. Public Schools. She joins us from Sacramento, California. Thank you to all of us. Let me go straight to you, because that last, I saw you both nodding in that last piece, where really you have to do more together to try to get the teacher situation and the classroom situation better. What can you do to make people like Randi Weingarten and teachers feel secure about how you're trying to reform and weed out the bad teachers?
Well, I think we've had a fantastic working relationship, and let me be clear, I think Randi Weingarten is going to help lead the country where we need to go. We have to elevate the status of the profession. We can't do enough to recognize great teaching. We can't do enough to shine a spotlight on success, and we have to be willing to challenge the status quo together when it's not working. And you're seeing that happen in district after district around the country, thanks to Randi's leadership and courage. That's not an easy feat on her part.
All right, well, you're speaking very nicely about each other for the moment. There's an issue that's just come out in Los Angeles, as you know. The Los Angeles Times has been investigating a school district there and has today put up data about teacher evaluation, student performance, all on the website, so it's accessible. Now, you think that kind of data should go out, and you don't.
Well, I think actually, well, I'll let the Secretary speak for himself. But I think the issue is, what we're all grappling with, is how you make sure that teachers are the best they can be. Failure is not an option. And I think what's happened is that we're all trying to figure out how to make teaching, which has always been an art, into an art and a science, which is why data is really important. But what the LA Times did is they used this data, which is unreliable and is basically a prediction and an assumption, they used it in isolation of everything else. And so we said, let the teachers see it, let them use it. In fact, they are starting to do that in LA, but don't publish it in this way.
The tragedy in LA has been that teachers, as Randi said, desperately want this data, and they've been denied it. Teachers want to get better. It shouldn't take a newspaper to give them that data. The district, the union, the education stakeholders have to work together to empower teachers. This should be a piece of how teachers are evaluated, just a piece. We have to look at multiple measures, but every teacher wants to get better. Why does it take a newspaper to give them what they desperately want? Let me tell you, in California, there are 300,000 teachers, 300,000. The top 10%, the top 30,000 would be amongst the best teachers in the world. The bottom 10%, the bottom 30,000, there's some real challenges there. No one in California can tell you who's in the top 10% and who's in the bottom 10%. Something's wrong with that picture.
Let me turn to Michelle Rhee, because she's had to deal with this directly in her own school district. Michelle Rhee, you have caused quite a lot of controversy. You've got a lot of supporters and a lot of detractors over what you're doing here in Washington, D.C. I'm just going to put up the picture of the Time magazine cover when you came in, you with a great big broomstick, basically signifying that you're going to sweep out the dead wood, so to speak. You got a certain amount of money in the administration's education stimulus funds. How did you do it? How did you get rid of something like 241 teachers and get the unions on board?
Well, we certainly sat at the table with the unions to craft a contract that we thought was going to be good for kids and fair to teachers. We completely revamped our teacher evaluation model so that it was more aligned with how students were actually performing. So in our new model, 50% of the teacher's evaluation is based on how much they're progressing their students in terms of the academic achievement levels. 40% is based on observations of classroom practice, another 5% based on how their school is doing overall, and then the final 5% based on their contributions to school community. So based on what Secretary Duncan just said, we're looking at multiple measures, and based on that, we can identify our highest performing teachers and our lowest performing teachers.
Let me just quickly ask you, because the figures from 2007 to 2009 showed a significant achievement in closing the achievement gap. But the latest figures that have come out show that that's stalling. How do you fit that into your plan?
Well, I think what it shows is that it's just incredibly difficult. I think for decades now we have been trying to figure out, as a public education system, how do we close the achievement gap? How do we make sure that race and socioeconomic status are no longer the determining factors of a child's educational achievement levels? And we've made tremendous progress over the last 3 years under our mayor, Mayor Fenty, who controls the schools here in Washington, D.C. But it's not a one-shot silver bullet solution. It's going to take a lot of time to get to the point where we can say that we've closed the gap.